Coming up on BG24 Sports, it was basketball Saturday at the Stro. Men's and women's played in a doubleheader.
Plus, hockey dropped in the national ranking after a weekend against Bemidji State. We'll talk about the rough patch the team is in.
And it was the interception heard round America. Does the Patriots Super Bowl win mean Tom Brady is the best quarterback in NFL history? We have all this and more coming up right here on BG24 Sports.
Unbelievable coverage that you won't get anywhere else. This is BG24 Sports.
Welcome to BG24 Sports. I'm Katie Wernke.
And I'm Terry Lash.
It was a doubleheader Saturday with men's and women's basketball. The women took on Toledo, looking to get their record back at 500, trying to get ahead in the MAC standings a little bit. This game was back and forth. Deborah Hoekstra wide open with the three. Did you hear that swish? Because I'm pretty sure those Falcon fans did. We'll take it to the second now. Rachel Knitsky. Rockets all around, but did you know Falcons can fly? She gets it over top and in for two. Those injuries, though, being felt right about now for Bowling Green. The Rockets' defense proved strong against the Falcons. They get the steal and take it down court. But one Falcon who is not on that bench is Miriam Justinger. She drives it inside, gets the two and the foul. The Falcons try to bring this one back, but the Rockets, they want those I-75 bragging rights. Bowling Green falls to UT 48-64.
They were taking good shots in the first half and they just weren't falling, and then in the second half they started falling. I think that we got a little lax offensively. We kind of started settling. We didn't attack them like how we did in the first half, and I think that was a huge thing.
That first 4 minutes was going to be really key in the second half because they were probably getting hollered at pretty good, and they came out and stepped up and made some big shots. They didn't hit 1 3 in the first half, and then came out and hit 5 threes. But I thought they, more importantly than anything else, that really swayed the score was their ability to get the ball inside.
And after the women's game, it was the men's team to try and take the court early on in the game. Rashawn Holmes with a monster jam over the Akron defenders later on in the first half. David Pep Joseph with some pep in his step, putting it high off the glass and in. Falcons up early, but it would be the Zips that came back late off of a missed put-back layup with 3 seconds to go, gives Akron the lead. And that would give the Akron the victory after Rashawn Holmes' prayer was not answered. Bowling Green fell in that matchup.
Now,
it seemed like we relaxed, and they didn't. They kicked it up a notch. They realized they don't step up. It's halftime, and it's pretty hard to come back from 15 and up on halftime. So they just started rebounding, getting stops. We weren't executing on offense. We weren't screening it, getting each other open. We were just standing pretty stagnant.
They had some huge steals late, and that's the thing about them, that their ball pressure is relentless, and you just got to deal with it. And it eventually wore us out a little bit mentally and physically, and we coughed up the ball in key situations.
Now, it was a really close game against Akron, 68-69, a heartbreaking loss for the Falcons. Let's take a look at some of these game stats. Bowling Green's leading scorer was Sean Holmes with 11 points, but compared to Pat Forsyth for Akron with 20, that is a huge difference when it comes down to it.
8 Falcons played in the game. All 8 players had 6 points or more, so a very combined effort in that game for the Falcons. But it came down to it. We talked about on the show last week, who's going to have the ball in their hands when the game's on the line. Rashawn Holmes put up a shot, not even close. So you can tell the Falcons are a little bit out of their comfort zone at the end of the game.
Absolutely, and a lot of those other stats were the same. 15 turnovers for Bowling Green compared to 13 for Akron. It was a very even matchup throughout the entire game, but what does this mean in the MAC standings for Bowling Green?
Well, a victory would have put Bowling Green #1 in the MAC standings. Now they're dropped with the rest of the herd, with the Central Michigans and Buffaloes and Toledos of the world. So they're trying to figure it out between 3 and 6 right now. A whole lot of season to go, of course, but this would have been a big win for the Falcons at home. A big home crowd there supporting them, just couldn't pull off the victory.
And some of those troubles ended up being the foul troubles. There were a lot of fouls for Bowling Green, 19 personal fouls for the Falcons. So the fouls ended up hurting them a lot. But if we look at some of the leading scorers for the Falcons throughout the year, Rashawn Holm leads the team with 14.1 points per game. And then we have Zach Denny with 185 total on the season. Rashawn has 267. So we do have some powerful scorers for the Falcons.
Yeah, and it's like we mentioned earlier, just like in the Akron game, it's coming from a lot of different Falcons. Some games is Rashawn Holmes, some games is Zach Denny, some games is Anthony Henderson. But there hasn't been that one guy to come out and take control of the team. I thought it was going to be Rashawn Holmes, but when it came clutch time against the Zips, he fell short. And Bowling Green needs to find that one guy that they can get the ball to at the end of the game.
They absolutely do, especially we saw that against Toledo last Saturday when Bowling Green really didn't have that one guy that they could go to for scoring, and that ended up hurting them in the end because Toledo has, some powerful scorers on their team, and it hurts them later on. But now after the break, we'll talk about hockey's trip up to Minnesota to face Bemidji State. Stay with us. Men's hockey had an interesting weekend against Bemidji State this weekend. Friday, they lost to the Beavers 2-5, and Saturday it ended in a 2-2 tie. Now, Terry, the hockey team has sort of come into some troubles, and a lot of this does sort of fall back on the goalies. If we look at two of the goalies that have been playing in most of the games for the Falcons, Chris Nell and Tommy Burke, Chris Nell has seen some troubles lately.
All right, let's look at those stats right there. Chris Nell, 10 games on the year, 6-2-2 record, looking really good. But let's look at those last 3 games. 0-2-1. You got to remember, Chris Nell started this season on fire. He was melting the ice, one of the best goaltenders in all of college hockey. Still a great goals against at 1.88, but lately the superiority of Tommy Burke has been evident, and I think a lot of that has to do with the veteran leadership that Burke provides over the freshman Nell.
Absolutely, and even if you look at Tommy Burke's stats too, he gives up about 2.26 goals per game, and that's more than Chris Nell, but he does sort of have those scorers that can come up behind him and get those goals. But Tommy Burke, overall, he has been the one to get the W's in that win column, and I think that's all that matters when it comes down to right now. If we look at some of the downfalls that have plagued this team lately, It's not been very good. A lot of it, I would say that they're getting a little bit ahead of themselves with the rankings and with all of the wins lately in the season.
You could be right there. They could be looking too far ahead in the season. The goaltending has definitely been worse these last few weeks. You see some goals here from earlier this year against Nell and Burke. But I think it has to go back to the third period defense. On Friday night, we saw 3 goals given up in the third period by Tommy Burke, 2 goals given up by Nell. On Saturday night, the Falcons came into that third period with a 2-0 lead. And then they came out with a tie. Not the result Coach Bergeron would like, and it seems like they're just crumbling late in the game, which they weren't doing earlier in the season.
Absolutely, and we can even maybe face that back to the pressure that's overcome this team when you are 6th in the nation and then you lose to Lake Superior State, who was last in the WCHA standings prior to this weekend. It sort of says a lot about this team. Maybe they're not so ready for the big break yet. But if we look at their upcoming schedule, they have Ferris State in back-to-back weekends.
You're right. There's going to be 4 straight games against the Bulldogs. Ferris State coming in at 6th in the WCHA standings. So it's a team that can give the Falcons some troubles. They can look ahead of them knowing that the Falcons are third, that they've been better historically throughout the season. But we saw what happened with Lake Superior State. You have to take all 4 of these games seriously. Try to get out of this dry spell. Get back to the Falcon hockey that they were playing.
Absolutely. It should be very interesting to see how they handle Ferris State in back-to-back weeks.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what happens, Katie. And when we come back, we'll have all that you need to know about the Patriots Super Bowl win and how their dynasty compares with some of the greatest dynasties in the history of football. Keep it right here.
Welcome back. It was a huge Super Bowl yesterday. Patriots over the Seahawks 28-24. Arguably one of the best Super Bowl finishes that we have seen. But with the Patriots win, does this put them at the top of the NFL dynasties in history? We have the 90s Cowboys, the 70s Dolphins, the 60s Packers. Right. But 2 dynasties that I think are very comparable to the Patriots are the Steelers and the 49ers.
Let's head back to the disco era in the 1970s of the Pittsburgh Steel Curtain. Those Pittsburgh Steelers were amazing in the 1970s. Let's look at some of their accomplishments. 4 Super Bowls, 7 division titles, 8 playoff appearances, 9 players in the Hall of Fame, and of course, that famous steel curtain defense. The Steelers are one of the greatest dynasties in the history of the NFL.
Absolutely. Then if we move it on to the 49ers, 1981 to 1994, 13 years for this dynasty. They won 5 Super Bowls, 11 division titles, 12 playoff appearances with, mind you, 2 different quarterbacks and 2 different head coaches. So another great dynasty. But let's see how this stacks up against the Patriots. The Patriots from 2001 until the present time, we'll go with the 2014 season. They've won 4 Super Bowls, 6 AFC championships. They are the only team in history to have a 16-0 regular season record.
The Patriots have been phenomenal, Katie. You've been absolutely right. But if we're going to compare them, and it is hard to compare teams across different eras, but you got to go with the West Coast offense of the 49ers. Not only did they make 4 Super Bowls, they won all 4 Super Bowls in dominating fashion. Joe Montana and Bill Walsh made football what it is today with that West Coast offense. I can't think of any other dynasty that's better than theirs.
It's pretty tough. I think if the Patriots continue the trend that they are on, they can surpass the 49ers. I think they've already surpassed the Steelers just with the amount of playoff appearances that they've had and the consistency that they've had over such a long period of time. It's hard to do that in modern day football.
You're absolutely right. You see new players every year in football nowadays, and it is impressive what they've done. And one of the most impressive players has been, of course, Tom Brady. Tom Brady, now comparing him to Joe Montana, who is the best quarterback maybe in the history of football? Brady with 4 Super Bowls, 3 MVPs, 6 conference championships, and 392 career touchdowns.
And Joe Montana stacks up just the same in those Super Bowls, Super Bowl MVPs. He has less conference championships, but one thing about Tom Brady that sort of sets him apart from Joe Montana is that Tom Brady has done this in 12 seasons. Remember, in 2000, he only played 1 game, and then in 2008, he only played 1 game. He didn't have any touchdowns in those games. Joe Montana, this is over a 15-season career. Granted, in a few of those seasons, he didn't play the full amount of games, but he still had touchdowns in every season. And Tom Brady has already surpassed Joe Montana in many categories, in passing, in touchdowns. I think it's leaning towards Tom Brady here.
The stats definitely give it to Tom terrific, but we have to remember the 80s were a different era of football. It wasn't the pass-happy NFL that we see today. So, of course, some of these quarterback stats are going to be inflated. Drew Brees has better stats history-wise than Joe Montana. I don't think anyone would put Brees Montana in the history of NFL quarterbacks, but Brady has gotten right there with him. It's incredible how we've seen a 6th-round draft pick transform into this NFL phenomenon.
Absolutely, starting as a backup for Drew Bledsoe and then finally getting his chance, and he's made a fantastic career for himself, broken numerous NFL records, and I think it's without a doubt that we will see him in the Hall of Fame eventually.
Oh, absolutely. One of the best quarterbacks in the history of football, no doubt.
Absolutely. Now when we come back, it is Around the Studio, a matchup between Terry and I, so stay right here. Welcome back. It's time for Around the Studio. How this works, I pick a topic. There will be 60 seconds on the clock, and the best argument wins for the topic. Studio crew will be picking the winners today because it is a battle between anchors. Terry and I going at it. Terry won last week, but this week is my week. May the best anchor win. Terry Lash.
Good luck to you, Katie.
Thank you. To start it off, men's basketball saw a hard loss against Akron this weekend. Will men's win the MAC championship?
I'm going to say no, Katie, and this is why. Because in the biggest games this year, 2 against Akron, 1 against Toledo, they fell short. Yes, against the teams that they should beat, they have been beating. I think they'll make a great run in the MAC tournament. They're a great team, but they just don't have that winning mentality yet that's going to give them that tournament victory.
You know what? I'm going to say yes because they have Chris Jans, who's already done tremendous things for this team. They've surpassed the 12-win mark, which is all the wins that they had last year. They've surpassed that. We mentioned how they don't really have that one leading scorer to take them, but they have so many other scorers that I think will play a key part in that MAC, in those MAC games. And I think when you can count on many guys coming off the bench, starting, it's going to really do a lot for them later on.
And it's going to be really interesting seeing them. This is by far the best basketball team we've seen in a decade here at Bowling Green. Absolutely.
So let's see who got that point. I think it'll be me, but it is me.
No.
Look at that.
No.
All right, good start off for me here. Moving on to the next question. Did Bowling Green fall far enough in the national rankings from 6th to 8th for hockey?
Great question, Kate. I'm going to say they did not fall far enough, and here's why. It seems like the team has gotten a little bit ahead of themselves. In that loss against Lake Superior State a week ago, they didn't drop at all. They stayed at number 6. I thought they should have dropped that week. This week, a bad loss on the road again against Bemidji State, and then a tie where they lost late in the game. Get them out of the top 10.
Oh, out of the top 10?
Out of the top 10.
Wow, I would not
Teach them
say
a lesson.
top 10. I think 8th is far enough. That's 2 spots. You see in basketball in the college rankings, some teams don't drop that far when they lose. I think 8th is definitely far enough. Granted, it was against Lake Superior, who is not the best team in the WCHA, but I think time will tell when they come up against Ferris State. If they can take those wins against Ferris State, they'll move right back up there. They'll shoot right back up. But we have seen them when they have had a tie and a win or even a split series, they haven't moved in the rankings or they've moved up. So I think 8th is perfect.
Drop them down.
Who's got this one? Do like a drum roll. Oh,
bang!
Terry, man, breaking my heart. All right, moving on to women's basketball. Will they make the MAC tournament? They're 11th right now.
They will make the MAC tournament, Katie. It is very close. And, of course, only the top 10 teams in the MAC out of the 12 teams in the conference will make the MAC tournament. Right now, Bowling Green sitting on the outside looking in. A big match against Kent State later on this season. Already lost to them this year, but they're going to beat them this time, and they're going to make that tournament.
You know what, though? I think you're wrong. I don't think that the women's team will make the MAC tournament this year because of all of the injuries. When you have Erica Donovan, Lauren Webb, Abby Sievker, all out sitting on that bench, and you're relying on all of these freshmen who Coach Roos had said earlier in the season that she was going to have to count on them and that it could either turn into a bad thing or a good thing. I think it's going to lean more towards the middle / the bad. I don't think that the freshmen are ready to take them into the MAC championship, MAC tournament, let alone the MAC championship.
Yeah, not the MAC championship.
But I don't think that they're going to see MAC tournament play this year.
In Roos we trust. They're going to make it.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Those injuries. Terry again.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, we're going to move to some pro sports now. Maybe I'll get some points that way. Passing the right call in the Super Bowl with under 30 seconds left for Pete Carroll.
Let me think of one. No, it was not. It was a horrible call. And I know the clock's ticking down. It's in the biggest game of the year, the toughest spot Pete Carroll has ever been in. But you run beast mode. He's been crushing it all game long. He is a power back. Give it to him at the goal line. Let him take it home.
You know what? I'm going to have to say with yes, it was the right call because we had seen throughout the game that some of those cornerbacks for the Patriots couldn't keep up. We saw Darrell Rivas who fell back, and the Seahawks scored that touchdown early on. And then running the ball, the Patriots did. In the second half, they didn't have really the strong key to stop Marshawn Lynch, but in the first half, they shut down the running game. So I think it was a perfect call for Pete Carroll to make. I think it put a lot of trust in Russell Wilson and in the rest of his offense for him to make a passing call.
It definitely has left this nation with a lot of Monday morning quarterbacks guessing his decision.
It has. So who's got that one?
Oh, yeah.
Man, Terry Lash.
Bang.
Wow.
Bang.
Okay, last question. Even though Terry's going to win, we'll do it for fun, I guess. Is Bill Belichick the best coach in NFL history?
That's a hard question. I'm going to say no. I'm going to give it to Bill Walsh and the 49ers from the 80s. He invented the West Coast offense, quick passes instead of long passes, 4 Super Bowls. Of course, he did have great help, Rice, Montana Young, but he was a solid coach, best all time.
I don't think so. It's got to go to Bill. Bill and Brady. And Bill we trust, right? Not in Ruse and Bill. It's got to go to Bill Belichick because he has the most playoff wins. He has the most Super Bowl wins with one quarterback, with Tom Brady. They're the perfect duo in NFL history, and it's got to go to Bill. I don't know how you cannot pick Bill. In high-pressure situations, he keeps his team together. We saw it with the Deflategate. We've seen it with Spygate. We've seen it with every other cheating scandal, per se, that has come over the Patriots. And Bill Belichick has kept his team together. They've rallied around it, and they have come out on top. It's got to go to Bill.
Katie, I agree. Bill Belichick is a cheater.
Okay. I think Studio disagrees with you, though. I got that point. But, Terry, nonetheless, you win this one. Take it away with your victory speech.
I'd just like to say it was great that we had so many fans this weekend for both the women's and men's basketball games at the Stro. For the rest of the year, pack the Stro. It is up to you guys to give the teams that home crowd environment that's going to make them have those deep runs in the MAC tournaments.
All right, nice speech, Terry. Now, when we come back, we'll tell you our picks for the hockey game coming up against Ferris State. Stay with us. Welcome back. Hockey takes on Ferris State after a big loss and tie against Lake Superior State. Terry, who's your pick to win those games?
Going with the Falcons both games. They're going to bounce back in a big way, get 2 victories, get back into the top 5 of this USCHO standings.
Top 5?
Top 5,
right,
going back,
right.
jumping 3 spots.
Okay, I'm actually going to go with the split. I think Friday night the Falcons are going to come out against Ferris State home. They're going to take the win, but then I don't think they're going to be able to hold on Saturday. I think they will end up getting that split. I think they'll move up in the rankings, but I think they'll end up getting that split against Ferris State.
It's a big weekend for Falcon hockey for sure.
Absolutely. That is all for BG24 Sports today. Follow us on Twitter for breaking scores and news.
And check out our website at bg24news.org for more videos. I'm Terry Lash.
And I'm Katie Warnke. Have a great night.